I'm sitting here in the booth at Friendship, booth of Wallace Gusler and Eve Ottmar, and I'm going to be talking with Wallace Gusler. Wallace, I enjoyed learning from you for many, many years. I'm curious to see how you began playing with muzzleloaders, and maybe that's the wrong word, playing, but I'm curious about your thoughts of the beginning.
Going back to the beginning, my first interest as a young boy was collecting Indian artifacts. That was along with making model airplanes and the kind of things that you did in our society at the time. Wooden models, not plastic ones. And hunting in the fields in southwestern Virginia for Indian artifacts. Getting interested in frontier. I would say that the David Crockett series, like many people of my generation, had an effect on my interests. And my father had shot muzzleloaders in his youth, and we had an old rifle that he kept in the corner, and it was iron mounted, sort of a classic curly maple stock southern rifle. I had, like most of the people in the community, or kids in the community, started hunting at an early age, and somewhere around 12 years old, my father got that rifle out one day to get it to shoot, and he was having trouble with it and getting it to fire, and so left me sitting there at the sawdust pile working on trying to get it to fire, and already having a great love for hunting. When that gun went off, I was hooked on muzzleloading, and that really the past sort of came to life, and I started hunting with that percussion rifle. That led to an interest in repairing them and repairing that one to keep it going. Meeting a few people, searching around for powder and lead and so forth. And somewhere along that way, I got a job in an antique shop working in the summers. And that influenced me in a broader perspective. And I continued to deal with that, and by the age 14 I made a pistol that was a year-long struggle. 1956 I did my first shooting gun.
Was that a flintlock pistol?
It was a percussion, and I sawed off an old long rifle barrel, a squirrel rifle barrel to make the barrel. But I did make the lock, and my first traumatic experience with making guns was trying to figure out how to make and temper mainsprings. And in our community, there were a number of people that worked in the N&W shipyards in Roanoke, Virginia. They still made the entire steamers there. One of the last lines to go off with the steam engines. And I got advice in metalwork from some of them, and some family relatives. Some relatives worked there as well. So that was my start, and I guess the next big thing that happened was a reporter came and did an article in the Roanoke paper, and through that article I met Robin Hale of Tennessee, who was into the revival shooting movement. He was at Virginia Tech in a geology path. And so Robin introduced me to people in the East Tennessee. 1959, I think it's the first time I went to Charlie Hefner's 3-day shootout in Franklin. The first time I met Turner Kirkland and the South Gates and many other people. And I commenced to get orders for guns there rather than in my own community. Because they were into the revival movement. And that was important. Went out there a few years. And then it was Robin who, after he graduated, was running a corps drill for a road in eastern Virginia. He got a job at the state of Virginia as an archaeologist. I mean, not archaeologist, but geologist. And so he stopped at Colonial Williamsburg and found they had an interest in establishing a gun shop, and he was the catalyst that put me and Colonial Williamsburg together. By that time, I was running a sawmill in the summer that my family milled, kicked out of school, and spent a lot of time hunting and building rifles and working on modern guns because it was necessary to make money. And what money we made was pitiful for that work. Making sporter stocks and shotgun stock. I did a little modern work during that period. Then I moved to Williamsburg in 1962.
Okay.
First in the blacksmith shop as an interpreter, and later in the winter of '63 in spring, we opened up the gun shop.
Okay.
And I think it was '64 I was made master gunsmith. And worked through. We did the gunsmith film.
Oh, yeah.
People in the field have seen over the years.
I've watched that so many times.
During that time at home, Gary Broomfield was coming over and worked. We were neighbors. He was working in my shop, and he was establishing a shop at his house. And when he went to college, he worked the summers at Williamsburg.
Yeah.
When he got out of college, he pursued the gunsmithing trade rather than forestry, I believe is what he was trained as. And in 1972, I was offered a position as the curator of mechanical objects at the foundation. So I moved to that career, and then Gary Broomfield took over as master of the shop. 2 years later, I was made curator of furniture and arms, and did a book on Eastern Virginia furniture, found things for the foundation, worked on period interior rooms, and also directed the furniture conservation and arms conservation shops, which had a couple people in those endeavors. In '84, I moved from the curator furniture job to director of conservation, and worked on developing a conservation program, which started with nucleus of those 3 people that we had, and that grew into a staff of 16.
Okay.
With conservators of objects, textiles, archaeology.
Objects including rifles among many other types of things?
Well, all the foundation's holdings.
I see. Okay.
So it was 504 rooms of exhibition and storage.
Sounds like a monster
It was
undertaking.
a very big, huge collection. And in conservation, I was developing a foundation-wide program, no longer just the department I hit. Came into furniture and arms were just a part of that. So
Okay.
we also worked on treating the paper collections, maps, and the paper collections, that paper and negatives that were the early restoration.
Okay.
Because our own history was starting to become an issue of preservation. Starting in 1927, we had lots and lots of documents and drawings, architectural drawings, horrendous amounts of those.
Yeah.
And during that period, I did a lot of grant writing, getting museum services grants from the government to help survey various classes of objects and work them on a path of getting them into safe environments.
Okay.
We were working on developing a conservation facility. We didn't have the money for it, but we were working on it. We eventually got a $14 million gift for that to cover the conservation and the curatorial offices. And so in the middle 90s, I was working a lot with all that installation. I had my conservators developing their own spaces, and we did lots of surveys throughout the country and Europe on various sizes of labs and what kind of facilities they had and so forth, because we wanted to put a state-of-the-art labs in this place. And so we were going to lots of labs and visit them, starting with the Smithsonian Conservation and medical labs up in Maryland. I did a stint of teaching up there for that unit through those times. And was involved in a startup of the Virginia Conservation group. I was the first president of that group. I was in Richmond, and Colonial Williamsburg got together. That's still going. And worked on the Mount Carroll, Illinois School of Conservation, and was one of the leading people in, I guess, the first curriculum committee group. So I wasn't leading that. I was a part of establishing some of that, and taught there a lot of years.
Okay. Now, I can't imagine being that busy and still managing to keep your hand in gun making. Were you making guns on your own all this time? Or?
I didn't make, when I left in '72, I think it was '76, I made a pistol at my home shop.
Okay.
I was very involved in carving projects, especially for the fitting out of the governor's palace.
Okay.
And so, and I was direct. We were making sets of chairs. I had sets of chairs being made on contract out of Williamsburg, which I was supervising reproduction of the arms for the palace by the Navy Arms Company.
Okay.
So I was going up there working on that contract and developing ways to hang the guns and nails for holding prints, which we had to make patterns for and get them cast. And so I was doing a lot of tradesman work and directing it, mainly directing it, but I also got a contract on my personal time to carve patterns for a 2-tier stove that now stands in the governor's palace. 2 of them are in the governor's palace. That was about 2 years of carving. They were all relief carved with the governor's coat of arms on one side. And, lines of swags in their mouth. That's another story. Take a look at that. Shortly after that, we purchased the Benjamin Bucktrout chair from the Masonic Lodge in North Carolina. It's the only signed piece of 18th century Williamsburg furniture. Cool. And it's this amazing Masonic chair. So part of the deal was that I had to make a copy to go to the lodge.
Okay.
And that was another 2 years of carving after hours. And it has dolphin feet, and the entire dolphin body makes up the leg.
Okay, yeah.
Bust of Matthew Pryor in the back.
This time you're putting in 60, 70-hour weeks?
Yes, I would carve till 3 in the morning. I was drinking 25, 30 cups a day of coffee. And was also pursuing rock climbing with a passion.
Oh, is that right?
So every weekend I could get off. I was out to Seneca Rocks or Stone Mountain in North Carolina.
Okay.
And had a co-ed softball team at the foundation. I was participating there.
Okay.
It was a very busy life.
Oh, it sounds
going through a divorce. What else can I say?
I was going to say, with Gary, I knew he played volleyball and he canoed. For you, it was rock climbing and...
I was a distance runner until 77.
Okay.
I ran long distance in high school. I kept running at times in Williamsburg. I ran a lot.
Okay.
And thus I have a bad back.
Oh, yeah.
Lower back. But in 77 I started rock climbing, and I stopped that in 98 when I fell 70 feet.
Ooh.
So
nasty.
Well, it saved my life, so I mean, you know.
I was going to ask you, I had seen pieces of your work in the 3 Centuries of Excellence, on the book and the art tour. Want to mention anything about the guns in that art exhibit?
The 3 Centuries of Tradition.
Yeah.
Well, John Bivens, that was his brainchild.
I see.
Along with Evan Maurer at the Minneapolis Institute of Art.
Okay.
And so Evan was at the time looking for a way to get men into their museum.
Okay.
He was looking at how many hunting licenses are sold in
the state.
Yeah, in the state, and so few men come to the art museum. So he was looking at a path of exhibits that would attract men to come to see one thing, hoping that they would get more interested in a broader spectrum of art, which I think did prove effective.
Yeah.
That show also traveled to Houston. And Monty Mandarino talked when it was in Minneapolis, and I went to the Houston one and talked about the thing.
Okay.
Mark and I ended up writing those entries in that book after John Bivens unfortunately passed away. He had asked us to do that in case he didn't live through the project.
I see.
So,
okay.
So that was, and we really we honored the list of people that he had chosen. I think we may have added 1 or 2 to that, but it was.